Her many voices, her many voices, her many voices, her many voices.
We are live.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Her Many Voices Lunch and Learn, which many people are calling the Power Hour, which is I kind of like as well. We are here with Tammy Cantave, and she's going to share with us a partnership that she has with Her Many Voices called Indigenomics. So we're going to learn about some financial literacy today. And welcome, Tammy.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here. I'm excited about this hour.
Great. Thank you. Please share with us, first of all, how you know Alicia and how you got to know her and Her Many Voices.
Absolutely. Well, everyone is aware of that earthquake that hit Haiti back in 2010. Well, I'm originally from Haiti, and I had been working in Haiti for a little over a decade, but maybe for about 10 good years at certain communities. And after the earthquake, I was introduced to Alicia. I worked with her sister actually at a Board of Ed in New York City, where I grew up. And she
Great.
connected me. She was telling me that her sister was preparing some resources to send to Haiti. She would love to meet you. And so we met a couple of months later and we went to Haiti soon after. And it's been a partnership made from heaven ever since. A lot of great stuff have come from it.
That's great. Is there an actual organization that you were working with in particular?
Yeah, the one that I helped IET is the one that I founded. And I also founded one in Haiti, HAACP, to really
Okay.
bring out the folks, the locals, to be a part of everything that's being done in Haiti. You have to include the locals. So there's two organizations that I work under. And I also sit on the board of Her Many Voices. So I have been really working closely for the last 10 years through Her Many Voices. That has been what
Yeah.
has sustained Help Haiti, and any other projects that we've done in Haiti has been because of Alicia Fall and Her Many Voices, and the resources.
Yeah. And that partnership that you guys have. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. Do you want to tell just a little bit about that work on the ground? Those two are just to give us an idea.
Yeah, well, the main thing is building schools. That is the first and foremost. And to do that, you have to build relationships within the community. So it always starts with that. They have to know that we're coming to assist, not to give a hand.
Mm-hmm.
And so we always start there. And the first project, which is in Port-au-Prince, but on the outskirts, we usually focus on the remote areas of Haiti where people usually don't get to, where it takes 2 hours to get there, back-breaking roads, the whole nine. And so when we start there, there's always a need for schools. The kids,
Mm-hmm.
or not enough of them, have access to the national school. And so we come in, and that's where we start. And so
Yeah.
the project is always to start with schools, to eventually bring in clinics, bring in and make sure that the students are given some sort of lunch, maybe even breakfast. The teachers are paid a decent salary so that they can definitely take care of their own households. So the focus is always there, and then as we get to know the community, we get to understand their needs specifically for that whatever community we're working in. And so we start branching out beyond the schools to aid in whatever projects or organizations. We really focus on women. So a lot of projects that we do, especially in one of the communities, which is Truchouchou, which is located in Tigouave. It's about 3 hours from maybe the capital. So the organizations there that we work with are mostly with the women.
Yeah.
Kids are always a part. Mother Nature and the land comes into play. So it's a holistic approach to what the
That's
community
great.
needs.
Yeah, and when you empower the women, then you empower the whole
Yeah,
community, right? Yeah,
everyone,
that's
everyone gets
well
a taste.
proven. Also, the point here I would love for the listeners to make sure that they take is that you and Her Many Voices are doing work on the ground with the funds that you bring in. You're making a difference in people's lives every day, and it's mostly the women and children who really need it the most.
Yes.
So that's great.
Yes.
Well, that leads right into your program that you created with Her Many Voices in Indigenomics. How did this come about?
Well, it began way before 2010 in terms of the need for funding. Funding for these projects that I speak of is it's costly. And so I wanted to find an alternative stream of income, of funding for these projects. And so I got introduced to the financial industry and the products and the institutions, from banks to investment firms to insurance companies, and what they do and how they do it, in which accounts or vehicles, as you know, the common term is, you know, the vehicles that they use to get to their end goal. I got to understand exactly how that worked. And it opened my eyes to how much information we do not know about what we're doing with our money. We know how to make it, that's for sure, and we definitely know how to spend it. But there are other parts of, you know, the money game, I like to call it. You know, you have to learn how to manage it, how to invest it, how to transfer it, how to save it. So there's more to just making it and spending it. And so that's how I got into the whole understanding of the industry. And then we understand also the minority communities, the indigenous communities are the ones who really are left behind. They have no access to this information. And so we decided, why not come together, since this is one of the ways that we do bring funding to the organization? Why not expose our members, our backers, to this information, which leads straight to the communities that we're working with, that we're trying to advance? And so that's how Indigenomics came about. And I love the name Indigenomics. I'm not even sure who out of the team, I think it might have been Aisala, or maybe Alicia. Those are the, you know, those two, they'd make it happen. And but yeah, Indigenomics is a focus on the communities that needs this information most, and it's making sure they get the information in a way that they can digest it and they can apply it. Okay, so
Yeah.
most people saw the quote that, I don't know if they saw the quote, but the focus is you must apply the information, because we have a lot of knowledge on this already. Most people are not going to hear something really new from me today, but it's how do we get them to apply it?
Right.
You know,
Right. Yeah.
because knowledge is power, applied knowledge is empowerment. But when we apply the knowledge as a community, then we have a paradigm shift. And that's always been the focus, is how do we shift the paradigm? How do we change what we're used to what we need to do, so that we can truly excel?
Yeah, and when you empower the whole community, so many people are affected, right? Or the leaders of the community, and there's the education
We are
piece.
all winners when that happens.
Yeah. Now, what's your ethnic background?
My background?
Your ethnic background?
Well, I'm Haitian.
Yeah.
I was born in Haiti. I came when I was 7. I've been here for more than 40 years.
And
I'm in
Alicia is saying
between.
also Anteano, is that right?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Well, the Taino, you know, all the people that I come from, you know, IET, which actually means mountainous, and that's because that was the Taino's name for Haiti. It was, and if anyone has been to Haiti, we know that it is nothing but mountains. So you have to be pretty fit to get around. And so yeah, so that's the background.
Great. That's wonderful. And I think, it's important. I know that focus on the Indigenous community within the title and in general is important, because these are typically the people that most need the information, especially in Haiti, is what you're saying, right?
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
the
You
source.
know,
Well, I know we can dive in here to the content. I love the idea of what you said about a paradigm shift. It's really, so much of this is really psychological, isn't it? It's a paradigm
absolutely,
shift in your own mind. And
absolutely.
when you and I were getting ready for the call, we talked about how thinking about money can be a game, right?
Right. Right.
It can be something that's fun. You learn the rules, and it can be fun, and it could be a game.
You have to see it as a game. It's and we all want to be champions. We all want to be the most valuable player, the MVP. Anything that you decide to do, and we all have different interests. Money is what allows us to do that. And so we all have to understand the game for what it is, because there are rules to the game. First, the first rule is that it's not an individual sport. We like to play it like we're the only ones that have to make these decisions, and we do it with some limited insight or recommendation, but we really don't understand the game we're playing, which is why in the end we realized that we fell short of the goal. We didn't quite make it to the championship, right? Which is our retirement. And if you make it to that championship and you have the retirement you want, then you have that MVP award. You've made it. But a lot of us don't do that. We really play it like it's an individual sport when it is a team sport, because anyone who comes in contact with your money, and there are lots of them. There's the accountant,
Yeah.
there's the banker, there's the insurance agent, the health agent, the lawyer. There's so many different people that come in contact with your money. They are part of your team. So you need to know who they are. You need to know what their roles are. You need to know when they are making it happen. And like any team, if they're not cutting it, you need to replace them.
Yeah.
You need
And
to
I like this
bring in someone
basketball
else.
analogy, right? I like the
Right.
basketball analogy, and that really you are the team captain of your
You,
basketball team because it's
you
your money, it's your life.
Exactly. You are the team captain. You make sure the players are in sync. You have to tell them what the ultimate goals that you're trying to achieve, what they are. And they all come in with a specific expertise. You have defensive players in this game. There are people who are there just to protect your money. There are people there that are offensive players because they're there to make your money grow. So you
Yeah.
have defensive players, you have offensive players, you have everyone in between, and they all play a specific role. So I put it under that context so that when I speak about money, people start to understand where they're lacking, what they didn't understand about the game. That's probably why they're not getting the results they've been looking for.
Right.
So
That's really great. Um, so would you like to share? I love your presentation about the laws of the universe. I don't know how much you want to share about that. Maybe we can just touch on it at least, and then we can go into whatever else you'd like to share with us.
exact, of course, the laws of the universe. I mean, before anything gets done, we have to understand the laws that govern us on planet Earth, right? There are
Yeah, the
physics.
energetic laws, right? I
Yeah,
mean, there's the laws of the game that are legal and
exactly.
social and policy wise, but there's also energetic laws.
Right. All right. We are inhabitants. We live on this beautiful planet, this Earth, and there are laws that govern it. And so, if we learn how to master those laws, and we can really excel in our lives, right? There's certain laws like the law of attraction, the ultimate law, right? It's the primary law. Nothing exists when we're using this law, and that is whatever we think, whatever we project, comes back to us. Okay, so we have one of the most phenomenal laws that we are not realizing is working either for or against us. And we have the law of vibration, where depending on the vibration that we're in, if you're down, then you're only going to attract the similar energy. And which is why a lot of us need to put on that happy face, whether we feel it or not, because that's the energy that you will be projecting. And if that's what you project, that's what's going to come back. Everything takes time, right? That whether we want to go to school and get that 4-year degree, there's a time frame. Whether we want a child, there's a time frame. The law of gestation. So everything has a time frame, right?
Mm.
And so when it comes to money, for instance, the reason I brought in the laws of the 7 laws, because so many things relates to money. One of them being the law of gestation. A lot of us think that we can make it happen in the last few years of our working life, that we can actually grow this account that's going to help us sustain ourselves during retirement at the last few years of our working years. And it doesn't work like that, because money needs time to grow. Nothing makes money like money makes money. Nothing. But it needs the time. And that's where the law of gestation comes in. The law of rhythm. You got to find your rhythm. If you are trying to do anything, we know when we're looking at someone who is off rhythm what that looks like. It applies the same way when we're trying to juggle things and we're not understanding the rhythm we need to be in based on who we are. So these are all the things that we're taking lightly, and they are not working for us because we're not really understanding how to apply them. So these laws, I always tell everyone, there are several laws. There are lots of laws. This earth, this beautiful planet runs off laws. So you will have endless laws, but focus on the seven natural laws: the law of gestation, the law of attraction, the law of cause and effect, the law of vibration, the law of rhythm. And so there's I'm sure I'm probably missing one or two, but because of
I
Google,
think,
you can just type in the
yeah,
laws and then it will pop up. Just
I
focus on
think,
that.
yeah. The law of polarity you had
The
mentioned
law of
earlier.
polarity, absolutely, right? Everything is opposite, right? That male and female, that's how we make it. We have to come together. So that exists as well. When things are, if you can be poor, then you can be rich. It's the same thing governing both. It's which side of it do you want to be on? And so,
Right.
but you just got to understand that that's what's governing us. And if we learn how to make it work for us, manifest it, we will excel.
And I think the last one is the law of relativity.
The law of relativity, yeah, like we all want to compare each other, right? Like what's the term that we use, keeping up with the Joneses? The next door neighbor is the next door neighbor. You do not know what they've acquired or how they've acquired it, where they've been. To keep pitting yourself against folks just because you see them having something and you think you should have it as well, but you don't know. Everything has to be looked into based on the context of where you're from or where you are standing at, or how did you get here, and stop judging yourself based on others and what you think they have and you think you should have it as well. It depends on how you were able to acquire it yourself. So yeah, these laws are awesome.
Yeah, and they apply to everything, right? We're talking within a context of the financial world, but they apply to everything in our
Everything,
lives.
everything. The money, we're going to focus on money, and I'm going to talk about a little bit about the real rules of the game, but it's for everything, for
Yeah.
love, for health, for peace. It's
Yeah.
it's the same laws. That's what's
Yeah.
that's what's so beautiful about it.
Okay. Well, share some specifics now about the financial world that we need to know.
Yeah, well, we already talked about it's a game. You're the team captain, and you have about 8 or 9 other players on the team with you. Okay, so that's how many folks that you need to know what they're doing with your money. Your job is to go make the money. Their job is to make sure they protect it and help it grow as you continue to bring it in. And so you have to learn how to really build that foundation. And so we always like to start with the proper foundation to building wealth. And that is, what are you standing on? Are you standing on some strong foundation? And when we talk about money, there are 3 institutions that you will find money in, and that's either banks, or investment firms, or insurance companies, and they all have their products. Now, for protection, for the foundation that everyone is standing on, you have to go towards the insurance companies. They're the ones that are offering the product that you can build your future on, because your biggest asset is your ability to get up every morning and go do you, right? If you're not able to do that, then nothing gets done. And so you have to protect you above all, and everything else that is going to come at you the second you step outside your door. And sometimes you don't even have to step outside your door. It can happen to you inside your home. But that's the first foundation. Then the next is always learning how to manage that money so that it doesn't get by you. You're not owing more than you actually bringing in. And that's where a lot of us fail. The third is we have to learn how to pay ourselves first. We hear that all the time. I used to hear that a lot, but no one really understands what that means. Pay yourself first. It doesn't mean make sure your bills are paid, because those are you're paying on Con Edison or whoever is your electricity, company. You're paying the mortgage company. You're paying them, but where are you paying yourself first? And that means you need to put money to the side for the future, for anything that comes to us. And because of COVID, a lot of us realized we were not at all safe. anything could happen. And within a week's time, we were lost. So, that is the first and foremost. You have to learn how to save. And ultimately, after you've learned to do that, you learn to invest, because you have to have your money grow. Nothing, again, makes money like money makes money, but it's not going to do it under the mattress. It's not going to do it in the piggy bank. It has to be inside one of these institutions that is giving you some interest. And when we talk about interest, we're talking about compound interest. And when we talk about compound interest, we bring in Rule 72. Now, Rule 72 is an Einstein formula. He's one of my favorite guys, Albert Einstein, the man of numbers, right? He discovered, by taking the number 72 and dividing it by the interest you are getting from the account that you have your money in, be it a CD, be it an investment account. If you take 72 and you divide it by that number, that interest, you will determine how quickly your money is going to double. Most people put their money in the banks because it's the safest place they can put it. At least they think it is. The banks barely give you 1% interest. So that's the simplest math you could do. 72 divided by 1 is 72. So that means it's going to take 72 years for whatever you have in that account to double. None of us have that time. Okay.
Right.
So we have to understand all of this. And when we're doing this, there's something that I like to call the lifeline. I was taught this about 2 years ago. We are all on a lifeline. It begins at birth. The first phase of this lifeline is our education phase, where we are educated. The next phase, and that's about the first 20 years of our lives, minimum. The next phase is the responsibility phase. Now, that's when we go out and we start earning our own, and we start having to be responsible for protecting what we've made. We can't just be very, a lot of us go through life not really securing any of it. So that's the next phase. The third phase is the retirement phase. After you've worked your life, you want to enjoy the fruits of your labor. So now the retirement phase is the third. The fourth stage is the final stage. There's an expense that comes with that as well. And so we have to be prepared for that. So when I talk to folks, I just have to understand, or they need to understand, which phase they're in. Are you in the education phase? And if you're in the education phase, for a lot of us, most likely you're talking to someone's parents, because in that phase, they're not responsible for any of it. It's the decision the parents make that's going to determine their success. So the parents need to know what they can do. And if you are in the responsibility phase, which is the biggest phase, that can go for 40 years minimum, because a lot of us can start at late teens, mid-teens, till we're in our 60s and 70s. And so that phase, you need to understand all that comes with that. Okay, so when I'm sending or talking to someone, it's always about which phase are they in and what is their focus. And they have to understand that the money game is played differently depending on that phase. So if you are in that phase, you need to know how to use the money game. If you are in the retirement phase, how to use that. It's not the same rules that apply. So you have to know all those differences. Then you have to also know how money gets taxed. When you decide to put your money someplace, you got to be concerned with how much of it is going to get taxed. Now, a lot of us are like sitting on pins right now because we don't know the future and what it holds. But we know one thing, taxes are going to go up. There's no way it's not with the expenses that we have. So if we don't know that taxes, we get taxed 3 different ways, then we're going to be putting our money in one of the buckets that we are not expecting to lose half of our account because of the taxes that attach to that. Okay. There's money grows 3 ways as well. It's not only going to get taxed 3 ways, it actually grows 3 ways. It can grow either fixed, it can grow either variable, which is the index, the up and down of the market, or it can grow really as the latest, which is called the index tracking, the index contracts. And that means that no matter what happens in the stock market, your money is safe. You're guaranteed to safeguard your principal as well as your growth. So you don't have to worry about that. But most people think all they have to do is invest their money in investments and put their money in banks. They're forgetting they need to find ways to protect that investment throughout the life of the growth. So we have all of those things that comes into play when we're talking about how are you playing the game and where are you in the game.
We had a little bit of a stock market issue in the last few days. So it would be nice if more of us had this kind of protection on the stock gains, right?
Yeah, most of us do not. And I learned the hard way myself. I worked for a great union, SEIU, in New York. I worked at the World Financial Center for 20 years. I had a wonderful benefits, wonderful 401k. And but I learned that I couldn't touch any of it until I was 59 and a half. So my money was stuck, was in jail, like we like to say, for the 20, 30, 40 years that you are working, because if you cannot touch it before you're 59 and a half, and if you do decide to touch it, you have a 10% penalty that Uncle Sam will tag on to you, and you still have to pay the taxes. I had to learn the hard way. Once I decided to leave the job and I wanted to know what I could do with my 401k, I learned that I couldn't do much unless I was willing to accept the penalties and the taxes that came with it. So, of course, I did, and I learned that there are other products that you can invest in, you can put your money in, you can contribute towards, that doesn't have those rules. It doesn't have the 59 and a half. It doesn't have another rule that a lot of people are not too familiar with. They know it, but they don't really know how it works. And that's the RMD rule, the required minimum distribution rule. That says that depending on where you have your money, which is why a lot of us need to understand the game for what it's played. Depending on where you have your money, you have until you turn 72 and a half to start taking that money out. So if you think you're going to live to your 90s and you think you have accumulated quite a bit of wealth in one particular vehicle, like a 401k, because that's one of the accounts that has that rule, and you think you don't need to start touching this money because you have other means and you want to grow this to your later years, and when you need it, you will start tapping into it. Well, Uncle Sam puts a deadline, 72 and a half. And if you don't start taking it out, 50% of it goes to him.
Wow. I wonder why that rule exists. Do you know why?
Yeah, because this is all about, this country is all about taxes. And so Uncle Sam has been very patient with you with the money that you've been putting into these accounts. They have not been taxing it, which is why a lot of people love to put money in these accounts, because they think they're going to
Right.
avoid paying taxes forever. But they forget the RMD rule, and it's part of the account, so it's nothing secret. It's just most of us are not paying attention as much
Yeah.
as we should, and so we don't hear that there's a 72 and a half rule that says if we haven't started taking it, Uncle Sam says, I've been waiting long enough, I've been patient, now I need my share of the money, and I'm giving you to 72 to start deciding it. And so I come in and make sure people are aware of these rules, because most of us are not. Okay, so those are some of the things that I like to focus on.
That's great. As you were talking about this Rule 72 from Einstein, it made me, I'm really starting to think about that. I love this idea. So I got out my calculator and I'm like, you're talking and I'm using the calculator. Can you just do a couple more examples so people have a better idea of what that is?
Which one, the Rule 72?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's do this, right? There are three institutions. There's the commercial banks, the investment firms, and the insurance companies.
Okay.
Each of them has something to offer. We know the banks offer regular CD accounts. Okay, so their interests are between 1 to 2%, if that. And we're going to use whole numbers to not get too
Yeah.
confused with that, right? So 1
Right.
to 2%, that's the banks. The investment firms, on the other hand, we can't say what the interest is because it's a risk. But this is where the highest potential growth can come from. So that's that. But if we say, let's say for the 401k, because the 401k is found in that bucket, it's in that valuable bucket, they
Okay.
average approximately 4 to 6% interest.
Okay.
Okay, so that's that. I mean, because they are tracking the performance of certain indexes, they can pay out 12%, 10% because the market can go up and down. But the average long term, and since a lot of us are keeping our money in a 401k for 20, 30 years, the average interest is about 4 to 6% for those.
So I took 72 divided by 5%
Uh-huh.
and came up with 14.4. So in 14.4 years, the money will double.
Yes.
That's how it
Yes.
works.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
Okay, that's
exactly
great.
how it works. So whatever the interest is, you make sure you put it under that 72, and whatever you get is going to tell you how quickly your money is doubling. We have an index account. Now we're moving towards the insurance companies. The
Okay.
insurance companies have a lot of annuities. That's where you get your annuities. If people love annuities, you're not necessarily going to get it out of the banks or the investment firms. You're going to get it out of the insurance companies. Now they have some that's been averaging about 10% interest. So you do the math again for us, Myrna. 72 divided by 10 gives us, there
7.2 years.
you go. So
So,
our goal as team captain is always to keep searching for the highest interest we can get for our money with safety. We have to have the safety, because if that, we're going to put our money all in the investment firms, and we see what's been happening the last 2 3 months with that. Okay, no one is happy today because they're losing money, and most of us would like to just not, we don't necessarily want to make money, we just don't want to lose it. So if we were able to just sustain our accounts, but that's not the case when you're putting it in investment firms. You're losing money in those accounts. So when you're looking for places to put your money, you have to ask yourself, does it have safety? Which brings me to mention one of the key criteria for any accounts that you choose to put your money in. It has to have 4 cornerstones. It has to give you all 4 for it to be where you want to play the game at, right? And what are they? The first is, it has to offer growth. And that's where you bring in rule 72. And you put in that formula, 72 divided by the interest. And if that number looks good to you, every 6 years, every 7 years, every 10 years, then you're doing great. If it's looking like it's 72 years, 36 years for it to double, it's not so good.
and also
Okay.
depending on your age, right? Your age is a factor in how much you want to save and how aggressive you want to be with your investing.
Exactly. But that's why you have to start this at a very early age, because you're not going to be any younger than you are today. And if you can start this, because we all started making money pretty young. So if we learn to start investing much earlier, not even really investing, more like saving, but because these products have so many features that you have to understand the ones that has the investment feature in a saving vehicle or in an insurance vehicle, but it has a saving feature in it or an investment feature, so that it allows you to do these things with your money. And so you can take advantage of the 20, 30 years ahead of you that you're going to be putting money into this vehicle. If you're waiting till you're 50, you only have maybe 10, 15 years to make that happen. And we already saw the best case scenario, 10% interest, your money is doubling every 7 years. You're only giving yourself 2 times for it to double. You need to, for it to
Right.
double 5, 6 different times throughout your lifetime for it to become something substantial.
So what are the other cornerstones? We've got
The other
growth.
cornerstones besides growth is safety. If you're growing your money, you need to figure out how to protect it from the market risk. So the vehicle that you put it in has to offer that safety. The third is that if something happens to you, because a lot of times these vehicles are something long term where you're going to be putting in 50, 100, 200 a month for long term, because that's the saving that's going to grow into your retirement. So you need to make sure that if something happens to you, because you can trip, you can be involved in an accident, you can be diagnosed with a chronic illness that temporarily puts you out of the workforce. And if that happens, the plans that you have, not to mention just the regular daily life living and the bills that you have to carry, that keeps coming. So the vehicle that you're saving for the future needs to have this backdrop, so that if something happens to you where you're not able to continue to bring in the bacon, and you still have to worry about paying all the bills that you know you're responsible for, it has to be able to pay you out on a monthly basis the expense that you have to shoulder. So that's the protection. And the last cornerstone, here comes the taxes again. Okay, because Uncle Sam is taxing just about anything. It's either taxing it before you put the money in the account, or it's going to tax it after you put the money in the account. And so you have to know which accounts have these advantages, that once you've grown the money to $1 million, although you've only put in maybe 100,000, that the whole million is going to come back to you tax free.
Mhm.
Not that the $900,000 growth is going to be taxed by Uncle Sam and you're going to lose maybe half of it and only walk away with 500,000. Big difference from when you thought the whole million was yours. And then you
Mhm.
realize Uncle Sam has 50% of it. And that's in taxes. That's not even a penalty. That's in taxes. So you have to have the tax advantage cornerstone. You have to have the growth so the money can really double several times while you are working. You have to have the safety so that after you've grown an account to 250,000 and you going through a week or the several weeks that we've been going through, you go back and you still have $250,000. You didn't make any money, but you certainly didn't lose. So you got to have that safety. And then you got to make sure that if something happens to you, where you can't go to work, your bills are being paid tax free. All of it has to be done in a tax free basis.
I'm going to review those for us. They're the growth, safety, protection, and planning for taxes.
Tax
And those are the
advantage.
four
Yeah,
cornerstones.
those
Yeah,
are the
thank
four
you.
cornerstones.
Well,
And go ahead, by all means.
I
You
was
were
just
going
going to ask about your vision for the community. It's, obviously you're seeing this education, financial literacy, as a vehicle for change for the communities. What's your vision for the community?
Well, that's a big one. The vision is it's never going to end. The vision is that we are empowered financially. Okay, we need to have that because politically, and we're not going to get into the politics, but we already know how difficult it is to have our voices heard. And we know already how much some folks value life. Those are the things that we need to make sure that we're fighting for. We've been fighting for to be recognized as humans, to make sure that our voices are heard. But when it comes economically, we are so far behind that I want us at this point to be financially empowered so that with the other two, we can really make changes for our community. We can really come in and know that the people who are making decisions are seeing us here. They know we make a difference. They know we can make things happen with our vote, with the way we spend our money. And so I want us to be standing on that kind of foundation so that we're not running left, right when these changes are happening and we don't know what we're going to be left with. We need to be more financially empowered. And so that's been the focus for the last 5 years since I've really gotten into this, is to try to see how we can bring this information to the people. And we've done it by doing some of the programs that is available on Her Many Voices website. We've done that in the past where we try to bring that information at people's fingertips at their leisure. And it's all about making sure they understand that they have the power. They're the
Yeah.
ones that can make the difference, and they need to make sure they do that.
And it's really empowering each and every individual, right?
Right.
It's empowering every individual. And you and I talked earlier too, about, how digital currency is probably inevitably coming, and that it would help. It's really going to help to, with the people who are the unbanked, right? People who don't have bank accounts. Eventually will be able to pay, for example, with their cell phone, because a lot of people do have cell phones and don't have bank accounts, right?
Tell me about it. Tell me.
Yeah. And so
Oh,
then they can pay
yeah,
directly whoever they're buying from, and they don't need a bank.
yeah.
Um, and so that digital currency is really going to help enable that, because currently they might now only have cash.
Right, right. And I am learning, right? I'm not so good with social media, I have to admit, but I have to get there because that is the future. And that's why I believe that this digital currency is the future. We've evolved. We constantly evolve. So this will not remain the way we use money, the way we've used money for the last 50 years. We've been introduced to what the future looks like with digital currency, and how people who do not have access to banks can still be a part of that game. And that's why it's going to change everything. I recently attended a presentation that I was told, and if you anyone have been to Haiti, knows how difficult Haiti can be, especially for the ones who are who are the informal economy that Haiti runs. 90% is an informal economy. Everybody has something that they're doing for themselves. But I was told a
And that
woman.
means, doesn't that mean also a cash economy? Informal
Exactly.
means more
It's
cash.
all cash economy. And
Yeah.
you have this thing called TikTok, which I really don't understand, but it is making people rich in Haiti because they have that cell phone. Because they
Mm,
have that cell phone and they're able to do what they do. People are tuning in, they're putting in their orders, and the money is being transferred to these digital accounts. And there goes the middleman. So if we're
yeah.
looking at where the future is going, there's no way where it is not going to go totally towards this. And we just need to be a part of it, need to
Yeah.
start understanding and wrapping our minds around it, because it's the future.
Yeah, that's great. It reminds me of how in many places in Africa as well, I don't know about Haiti, probably as well, how the technology jumps a generation, meaning that I believe in many of these places, there were never landline telephones.
Right.
There were never phones. And then eventually the cell phones came and they jumped right past that. And
Exactly.
now the same thing is happening with banks. They're not going to have a bank account. And in a way the technology enabled them to jump past it.
Right.
But the beauty is that we are getting past it, right? They're still going to have the benefit of having this new technology with digital currency and being able to pay each other directly.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah,
So
it's
I
pretty
see that
fascinating.
really empowering communities all around, you know, with just a click of a button, they can see their wealth. They could actually see their value, for what they do in the world. Because we have a lot of hardworking people who don't see that at the end of the day. They don't really see what they've accomplished with it, because the banks get a hold of it. They know how to piece off most of it, and
Yeah,
everyone else knows how to, before they by the time they're left with the rest, it's nothing. So
yeah.
this way they get it first, and they can figure out which way they want it to go.
Yeah, I know. And I love this economist, Hernando de Soto. He's
Yeah.
someone who's just a real champion of the people, and he sees where blockchain will enable, as an underlying technology, blockchain will enable these digital currencies so that people won't have to even have a bank account.
No, they
So it's
don't.
it's pretty exciting, really.
It is, and as a person who's championing that, he is my champion, because he is showing folks that this is the future, and this is how you can gain control of your own assets and your own finance, and just disregard, because you've never been allowed to be a part of the old economy. So now just venture towards the future and be a part of that, because you already have it at your fingertips. So you don't even have to worry about it. Just start using it and learning it. And that comes back to what we were trying to say earlier. We must learn the rules. We must learn how these things are being done so that we can truly excel. Because anytime we've been taught to play a sport, we've excelled at it. Okay. Every one of us excel at any sport once we learn the rules and we
Yeah,
practice. So
yeah,
learn the rules, put it
right.
to practice, and see if you don't get different results.
So we have a question. What about the people that talk about cryptocurrency as more of a disruption and not as more of a negative thing?
No one likes change. I used to see something that says change is good. You go first. Okay. Okay. That's
That's
the bottom
awesome.
line. No one wants to see change. No one wants to see how they've manipulated the situation to their benefit. They're taken away from them. And this is what that's leading to. They're gonna lose control of how they've been managing us from a distance without even coming at our foot. They just the billboards are all over the place playing that psychological game on us. And they know that they're gonna lose that control if we start veering towards this new pattern. And so that's all it's about. It's about wanting to keep control of things.
Yeah, and I think like anything, there's positive sides and negative sides to it, of course. But
Yes, of
the
course. That's
the
the law
people,
of polarity.
Yeah,
That's what I
yeah.
mean. There's always both sides to everything. So we're
So
not saying everything is good or everything is bad. Just know that
yeah,
there are both sides. So if you can see the bad, know that there's a good side on the other end. Just figure
yeah.
out how to get to that side.
And we really covered the good side first. We covered how people with cell phones will be able to pay each other directly and not have to use a bank, and those people will not be tracked.
Right,
Um,
right, right.
as and possibly. But then,
Possibly, as you
but
said, right?
but then the bad side is, with some of these digital currencies, of course, the governments will be able to tell what you're buying and when and where and all of that, and
Yeah, listen,
possibly even control what we're spending. But
listen, listen.
it's all still TBD, right?
Right. This is the world we live in, we can be on our own, fitting for ourselves, but because we are giving all these extra benefits, because it is a jungle, right? We live in a jungle. We've learned we don't see it as a jungle because we have paved streets, we have order, but it's a dog eat dog world out there. And if we've come to accept this life and for what is being given to us, this comfort, then it comes with the other side, which is they're going to want to know exactly what you're doing and how you're doing it to make sure that you stay in line. But as long as you learn the rules, you can step outside of that line. And that's all it's going to take. Just know the rules to step out. The ones who don't will
Right.
remain inside. But I'm
Yeah.
hoping with this conversation and what we've been doing with Indigenomics, they are learning that they can step outside the line, outside the box, and make these differences and these changes.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Here's a question for you. If you were really consider yourself successful, what will that change look like for you?
Myself, oh man, if I was considered successful, that means that several things have happened. First, there's something called the human life value score, and that
Mm,
is all of us has a score. We have the credit score, and we all kind of have an idea what that means and how to get it higher and what brings it down, but they've attached a credit score to each of us. Well, there's also a human life value score that's attached to all of us as well. Most of us don't realize it. And if I am successful, that's the first thing everyone will realize, that they have a score that they need to be just as focused on raising as they
mm,
are focused on the credit score, because the credit score
mm.
benefits the credit cards, benefits the businesses that uses those credit cards, but the human life value score benefits you as an individual and your family. So if I'm successful, everyone knows what their human life value score is, and it doesn't stay static. It continues to grow. Okay, they know that. And if that happens, then I've made enough. I've created an ulterior income stream to build the hospitals, the clinics, the schools what we all want to do in these remote communities that are so disadvantaged. So it's two things that has to happen for me to see the success. I have to see us recognizing that score and protecting it as we should. And second, it transfers into remote communities benefiting because of the resources that comes from that can definitely build these things that I just mentioned. So that's my success story. And I'm
That's
not going to
beautiful.
give up until these eyes are shut.
Oh, that's amazing. That's wonderful. I love it. I love your commitment and dedication. The human life value score. I want to know more about that. I think is that the like the score that they're assigning in China now to each and every individual?
Well, this score has been all around. It's been, I mean, this is how they determine when something happens to someone, what the family is owed based on that human life value score. It's mostly based on your age and your income, because and your
Ah,
potential to earn. Those are the two key factors that makes up that human life value score. So if you're younger and earning quite a bit of money, your human life value score could be just as high as someone who has made most of their wealth already, but very little time ahead of them to make more. So it's that combination. And there are other factors that comes into play to determine it, but those are the two things that most of us have to be worried about.
so
How
it's assigned by the federal government,
it
right?
is,
And
it is.
but it's separate from your credit score, your
Oh
basic
yeah,
financial credit
oh yeah,
score, but they're
oh
also
yeah.
tied together or no?
No, they're not tied together, but
Okay.
and some things you are never sure what is actually happening behind the scenes.
Right.
So a lot of things in the past wasn't the case, and now it's becoming the case. So today, because they're putting credit score into so many different aspects of our lives, that I wouldn't be surprised if they don't bring those two together and start using it as a way to determine what your human life value score is. Because once they realize you've learned the game, they're going to start changing it. They're
Right.
going to
Yeah.
start changing the rules. So that could be very well what they do with that. But yeah, it's separate. It's not something that you hear people speak of. But when they need to know what the family is owed because of, a lawsuit, something happened, that's when they bring in the human life value score, and they start using your age and your potential to have earned, how much have you earned before, and how many more years do you have to earn to come up with that number, and then it could be in the millions.
That makes sense because that explains something. I've always kind of wondered in a lawsuit when they settle, where do
Yeah.
they come up with these numbers? They seem like they come from nowhere, but that makes sense.
And a lot of times you almost see the same number all the time. The same number. Don't care what who the family is, what state, it almost comes back to be the same exact number that this was awarded to such and such a family. And it because of that. So yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
we are.
$5 million. I feel like it's $5 million. No, I don't
No.
know.
It's about, I mean, to give you an example, $50,000 for someone who's in their 20s. That human, if you're earning $50,000 and you're in your 20s, you approximately have a human life value score of $1.5 million.
Okay.
Okay. And it's a math they take the $50,000 that you make a year. They say they times it by 30 because they're looking at it towards your 50s. You could be making this kind of money or even more. So they take that to begin with. So 50 times 30 gives you 1.5, and that becomes
Okay.
1.5 million. So a lot of young folks who are barely making money, but because they got 30, 40 years ahead of them, their human life value score can be in the millions, even though they're
Gotcha.
making under $50,000 a year. But they
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
40 years ahead of them to make that and then some. So that money can be about $5 million. Easy, easy.
It is a game, isn't it?
It is. It
It
certainly is. And that's why all of us, when we decided we wanted to sit down at the table and learn how to play Monopoly and how to play all, the first thing we needed to know was, tell me the rules. Tell me what's the objective. Okay. And
Yeah.
the only way you got better is knowing the objective, knowing all the do's and don'ts, and you kept playing the game. Knowing that you didn't bring in
Right.
your own rules, you didn't try to do something different, you use the rules of the game to excel. Same thing with money. Know that there's rule 72. Know the four cornerstones of any vehicle you decide to put your money in. Know the three ways money gets taxed. It's either going to get taxed now, taxed later, or it's never going to get taxed. So you
Mm,
decide which bucket you want to put it in. Money grows three ways. It's either going to grow fixed, it's either going to grow variable, or it's going to grow indexed. And that's what we teach in Indigenomics, what these terms mean and how to look for them. And you can see them coming as soon as you see a certain word in the account, like index accounts. You kind of know this is something I need to look into. Now let me see if it's the right index, because again, you still need to know if it's a good one or a bad, because the law of polarity says whatever there's good, there's bad. So don't think it's all good and you don't want to know what the bad is, because you need to know when it's coming, how to duck.
right. Right. This is wonderful. I'm learning so much. It's great. Um, Tell us about the format and structure of Indigenomics. I know you've been doing 1 hour long classes and
Right.
they're available on YouTube. Can you tell us
Yes.
about the format and then what's coming up?
Right. Well, the first session, the first season that we did was focused on all we just talked about, and and how each, and went in depth into Rule 72. We went in depth into certain tax codes that people need to be aware of. And that's one that I didn't even mention, the 7702. Now, that's a tax code, everybody. If you're looking for something where to put your money, look for the 7702 tax code to figure out if that works for you. Okay, so that's what we did the first season. Now, what I thought I could do now is possibly really focus on how to win the game. We were taught the rules. We were taught how people are, how Uncle Sam is taxing you, how Uncle Sam is keeping track of your money. We were taught all of that in the first season. The next one is how to actually apply this stuff. What's the first step? And what's the second step? And what's the third step? And then, of course, you bring your flair into it, and then you can tweak it as you want. But you need to know what are the basic first steps, how to identify the banks that you need to work with, how to identify the stocks if that's what you're into, how to identify the insurance companies, because you need to truly diversify and you need to have your money in all three institutions, but doing different things. And so we're going to be focused on exactly how to do that. You know, some of the basic rules, it's not going to be as long as the first, because again, a lot of us have this knowledge already. We just haven't figured out how to really apply it on a daily basis. So I'm hoping to, it's going to be short enough so that people can start going out and feeling comfortable applying this knowledge and then seeing what it gets up 10, 15, 20 years from now, which I hope to be here to hear the stories.
Yeah, that's great. Why don't you share with us some of your websites, and we'll have them put on the screen for everyone. And then I have one more question as well. And if anyone has the questions for Tammy, now's the time.
Yes.
So share your websites first.
The website that everyone knows Her Many Voices Foundation, that hermanyvoices.org is there for us to see everything that we're doing. But I have a website called Help IET. And Haiti is spelled Hayti. And it's the original spelling of Haiti, the French version of it. And
Yeah.
so
Is it
it also
help Haiti?
means,
Is
huh?
it helphaiti.org? And then she'll put
It
it up.
is. It is helphaiti.org. There's no website for HAACP.
Okay.
And so that's one of them. Now, if someone is interested in learning a little bit more about the future, the Bitcoin, the digital currency, and how to really start learning this game, there is one other website that I am associated with. I go on it. I try to learn from it, and it's the letter I and the letter M, imacademy.com. Allows you to look at some of this, the future, and how this can, how you can start positioning yourself to really be a player as this economy begins to shift. And you want to make sure that you can do that, you can shift with it, and grow your wealth as well. So those are the two. And so that's where you can find some information about the work that I've done in Haiti, and help in Her Many Voices. You can see the work that we will be doing in Haiti and everywhere else.
Great.
Okay.
We have also here on the screen, we have the link to donate to Her Many Voices. I also want to share with everyone that you can just contact us at Her Many Voices to bring Tammy into your organization to present Indigenomics.
Yeah, I am available for that. And it's for free, everyone. This information, I am, especially with Zoom, I could be in any parts of the world and I can come to your living room. So it's not going to require a lot of, expense on my part. Just
That's
a little
great.
bit of time, and I'm willing to give it to really empower us as a community. So I can do this for each of you in your organizations. Just reach out, and then we can schedule something and make it happen.
That is really very generous of you. And I do have one last question. Okay. And then while you're speaking, I'll make sure and see about any other last questions. Please share with us what you did with Libertude.
Yes, Libertude was another organization that I worked with. Libertude is Selah Morley, the daughter of Lauryn Hill. So I wanted to reach the millennials. They are definitely the future. I mean, the baby boomers have set the trends with their numbers over the years, with 71 million strong, but the millennials beats them at 72.5, I think. And they are the future. And so I wanted to reach them early, because we talked about money grows, but we need to give it time. And so Selah allowed me to jump on her Libertude Instagram, and we did about 12 sessions doing exactly what we did with Her Many Voices, we did as well with Libertude. So I repeat this. Everyone who invites me to do it, I bring that information and my flair into it for everyone. And so that's what we did last year. It was awesome.
That is really amazing. Was it, you said it was on Instagram?
It was on Instagram, the Land of Libertude. The
That's
Land of
great.
Libertude.
So
Yes,
you would
yes,
do
yes.
odd live video sessions kind of like this. And how long did they last?
Exactly. Instagram is all live. There's nothing about Instagram, and I had to be thrown into that because I told you earlier I'm not really into the social media. I had to be thrown into it, but I've been working and making myself uncomfortable, so it was perfect. And I was a live setting for 1 hour, and the folks were asking a little bit of questions. I got a lot more in the when they posted it, and people was able to view it at a later time. But yeah, it became it was on that platform. So I'm open to use any platform. Just show me how to do it, and I'm there.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Tammy. Is there anything else you'd like to share as we wrap up here for today?
Yeah, well, just one last thing about this game that we're playing. It requires discipline and sacrifice. And remember this, okay? Sacrifice for what you want, or what you want will be the sacrifice. Okay? So if we don't do that, we're not going to be. And again, sacrifice for what you want, or if not, what you want will be the sacrifice. That's the only way the game is played. Okay.
That's a really important concept. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you,
This has
Myrna.
been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Okay. You have yourself a wonderful time. Okay.
Okay. Have a great evening.
You too.
Still